Electricast. This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Running a small business means I wear lots of hats. When I put on my hiring hat, I can count on LinkedIn Hiring Pro to make it easy. LinkedIn Hiring Pro helps manage my hiring workflow, puts my job post in front of a unique network of professionals, and matches me with the best candidates for my business. I can also share my job with my network. No other job site lets me do that. No wonder most small businesses say they'd use LinkedIn Hiring Pro again. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today I'm speaking with Carolyn Jahnke. Carolyn is the founding attorney and CEO of Athena Legal Solutions, a woman-owned law firm that serves as a long-term legal partner for women entrepreneurs who want to build businesses with clarity, confidence, and intention. With more than 20 years of experience spanning nonprofits, startups, and corporate leadership, Carolyn brings a rare perspective to the practice of law. She has spent her career inside organizations, not outside them, which means her legal guidance is grounded in the real-world realities of running, growing, and leading a business. Her work focuses on helping founders proactively protect, grow, and preserve the value of what they're building without fear-based messaging or unnecessary complexity. She believes that strong legal foundations are not about restriction or perfection, but about creating freedom, reducing second-guessing, and giving business owners real options for the future. Hi, Carolyn. I've been looking forward to our conversation, so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited that you said yes. I opened up this space specifically because I wanted to talk to women like yourself. I thought, you know what? I am leading out an entire population of women who work inside corporate environments, and I'm not speaking to them directly through women like yourself who are inside those environments. And you deal directly, you actually support entrepreneurial women. So I think this is going to be a really incredible conversation. But before we talk about what you've built and the work that you do with the women that you're serving today, I want to go back to the beginning because 20 years of experience spanning nonprofits, startups, corporate leadership, and founding a law firm is very intriguing to me, and I'd love to know more. So can you take us back through that journey and share what you discovered along the way that ultimately led you to create Athena Legal Solutions, and what made you want to build something specifically for women entrepreneurs?
Oh, well, once you reach a certain age, right, there's just a lot of experience you accumulate, right? So going back to the beginning is, a long way to go. But this is like my third or fourth reinvention of who Carolyn is. So my actual first career right outside of college I was in politics, and I worked in the state legislature here in Wisconsin for over a decade. So I tend to do my careers in at least a decade length. So I did that for a very long time and kind of got burnt out on it. And then I went and worked for nonprofits, like in a quasi-governmental, private-public kind of partnership, and assisted with programs for people with special needs, recreation programs, which was near and dear to my heart because I have a sister who has special needs. That kind of transitioned into, life evolving because I met my husband, we started having children, we moved, and I transferred from that into working at an insurance company and had a variety of roles in a legal department in an insurance company. And while I was there, I was like, well, I work in a legal department. Kind of the only way I so foolishly said, the only way you get ahead in the legal department is to become a lawyer. So why don't I become a lawyer? And so that's what I did. And I became a lawyer. My husband so graciously supported me. And while we had 2 kids prior to starting law school, then we had 4 kids by the time I left law school. And my company let me kind of work and go to school and do all of those things. And that was kind of where I really got the entrepreneurial bug, was in the insurance company, because they also had a startup that they started, a little data and analytics business that they started in the insurance company. And I got a chance to kind of run the legal and do some business operations work for that startup. And so it was a really great chance to work with some people who'd been entrepreneurs and, kind of had the corporate structure, but also the entrepreneurial. And I just kind of got bit by the bug of what it means to build something from the ground up. And I loved everything about that.
I love that. Was there a defining moment for you though? Because you went from like so first of all politics, and then you jumped to nonprofit. So that's like a completely different polar opposites. Not that politics can't support nonprofits, but it's like you go from this particular industry to then now you're in nonprofits for personal needs, especially, and then you go to insurance. So it's like almost like a jump in the different areas don't really necessarily support each other in the sense that they don't really like you wouldn't put them all like how you say which shape doesn't fit the mold, right? Like when you're putting the shapes in, I'm sure you play that with your kids. And so I'm really super interested, especially as you became a lawyer. I was asked that a long time ago, like, why did you become a lawyer? I was like, no way, because I saw I saw what a lot of lawyers would go through, and I think I just wanted to be. I love being the support staff, but yeah, I wanted to ask if there was a defining moment inside, any area, one of these areas that you really supported, where you saw a gap, where something that women business owners maybe needed, but they simply weren't getting.
Oh, well, I think the gap is in the business that I created, right? Is, when I made the move out of corporate into starting Athena, most legal services are meant for big companies, right? They're high dollar. They're only interested in kind of providing this really high level legal support with a whole bunch of lawyers and doing all the work. And those places can afford legal support, right? But the people who can't are those people who are just starting out, who are scrappy and kind of bootstrapping on their own. And often it's women who have families, right? That they're really nervous about, how am I going to continue to support my family? And they don't get the legal support that they need because all they know is they've been in corporate and they know the tens to hundreds of thousands that their corporate might pay for legal support. And so I think that was the piece that I saw missing as I moved out of corporate and started Athena, is that really there needs to be someone who serves the little guy, or in this case, the little woman.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Something that stands out to me is, when I was talking in the very beginning, introducing you, that you deliberately move away from fear-based messaging. I think there is a lot of that out there, especially online. You see a lot of people are doing like the urgency messaging, the fear-based messaging, trying to pick at the wound. But I think it's so important that one of the things that I started really thinking about was why do I want to like focus on the fear? Why don't I focus on like what's the solution? Like instead of focusing on the problem, because we all know that everyone has problems that we deal with daily, but wouldn't it be great to actually focus on, okay, if this was this way, what would you do over here, instead of like helping them leapfrog into finding those solutions? So I think it's so important, because you were just saying a lot of the larger corporations, they have the budget to spend on that support. But someone who is starting out or maybe doesn't have a large budget, where do they go to get that support? Because they still need that kind of support. So one of the things I think is, and I'm not sure if this is really true or not, because I'm not really sure that this is your expertise, this is your area, but do you find that a lot of women that you have spoken to, they've either avoided the conversations or legal conversations or the hard conversations out of fear, especially when something, or or they only reach out, I should say, out of fear, or they only reach out when, okay, it's crunch time and something's already gone wrong?
I think it's kind of twofold. either there is fear and shame that they did something wrong and don't want someone to make fun. I don't know if make fun of is the right term, but like to point out, oh, silly, you didn't know that. Why didn't you do this way? Right. And I think they think that for some reason they think everybody thinks they should know this stuff. But I think that's true for a lot of women, right? We think like, I should know this. So I shouldn't ask the stupid questions, what feels like a stupid question. But business owners didn't go to law school. Like why should they think that we would expect them to know the answers? And so I think it's kind of that fear and the shame that they think they might get of someone going, we should have known that. Like, why did you make that choice? So I think that happens a lot. I think oftentimes they reach out because either someone told them, someone they respect said, hey, you should just talk to somebody and it's not going to be as scary as you think it's going to be, or something pretty dramatic and horrific has happened. And so they're like, I have to get this figured out now. A client hasn't paid me or a contractor ripped me off, is using my content that they helped me create, things like that. Or God forbid, someone has passed and I didn't have an estate plan, right? So they're like trying to do the cleanup. And one of the big things with what we do is that it's cheaper and more effective to be proactive and preventative than it is to be reactive and trying to clean up a mess, because that just gets much more expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if you turn a blind eye to it, it's still there. you know, I think a lot of the time you think, well, if I don't see it, if I don't look at it, it's going to go away. But typically, it's better to just allow yourself to face it head on. And you never know. It might not be not, I wouldn't say as big a deal, but it might not be as big as they're making it to be. Like, because I'm sure when they come to you, it feels like it's a mountain, but you can look at it and say, okay, no, this is doable. We can actually do something with this. And I think that can be very helpful and make them feel a little bit calmer because they know, okay, somebody who knows this, someone who's actually in this industry can help me to figure out the pieces so that we can move forward. And I think that's important. I think a lot of the time, again, we don't want to know, or we feel like, okay, we'll get to it. I think I think the procrastination part too is like, if I don't see it, if it's out of sight, out of mind, and I have to deal with it later, but sometimes allowing it to get too big is, I think, probably the worst thing. Like you were saying, be proactive instead of like allowing things to build, and not be reactive in the sense that, especially if you have someone like yourself in their corner, you don't have to be reactive because, I can come to you and say, hey, these are the things that I'm faced with and I don't know what to do. And you're able to say, hey, let's just take a look at it, ask the questions. This is what we can do. And I think that really just calms someone. Like it just really does. Like it calms someone's nervous system when they can actually talk to someone who knows the law, especially because we don't, right? Especially as an entrepreneur, you don't know the law. And so it's important that to have someone like you in your corner. So I love that. One of the things that you believe in is that strong legal foundations aren't about restriction or perfection, but about creating freedom, reducing second guessing, and giving business owners real options for the future. And I love that reframe because I think most women hear the word legal. Again, we've talked about that. And immediately they might feel limited rather than liberated because they think, oh, there's going to be restrictions. I'm going to be put in a box. I can't do X, Y, Z. I can't say certain things. But my question for you is, what does a truly solid legal foundation actually look like for a woman-owned business that you've worked with? Like if you could give us an example. And what is having that foundation in place free someone up to do that maybe she simply couldn't do without it?
Sure. I'll give you a simple example, just like on a really small scale piece of it, because it's kind of different based on what they do. Is it product, services, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see these all the time, like on Instagram and things where it's like, file as an S corp. You should be an S corp, and you're going to save all this money, and it's the best thing to do. But there's so much nuance to that story, right? So if someone came to us and said, hey, I'm going to start a business. I want to have the most favorable tax position, things like that. But I probably want to bring on a partner someday, or maybe I'm going to look for investors, things like that. The very first thing we would tell them is you can't become an S corp. Don't be taxed as an S corp. And you don't need to be an S corp. you just might want to be taxed as an S Corp, right? There's a difference between being an S Corp and being taxed as one. And so because there's limitations that having S Corp status put on your business. Like you can't have different types of ownership. Like everybody has to have the exact types of ownership. And a lot of people don't know that little piece about that. And they don't talk about that when they're saying, oh, you're going to save all this money. But there's ramifications when you have to go backwards. There's tax ramifications if you have to undo being an S Corp and being taxed as an S Corp. And so it's those little conversations of just asking a few more questions that then would say, maybe we go this route. So you have all the options available to you. And maybe there's other ways we can save you money versus just making that one change right now. So it's having the solid legal foundation is giving you one that has options for where you might want to take the business. And that could look different for every single woman business owner.
Okay. When you first see someone, though, are they typically at the very beginnings? I'm sure you probably had them from beginning stages to already like deep within their business already. But say someone comes to you because there's a lot of entrepreneurial women who listen to the podcast. So say someone comes to you and they are kind of like in that transition phase of, let's say they're going to bring on a partner, because I do know a couple of women, incredible women that were working by themselves and then decided to partner up. What would be like, I guess, a tip, where would you typically start when someone wants to actually bring on a business partner? And maybe again, you looked at the S Corp, but so what would be the best kind of, I guess, business model, or should not business model, but instead of an S Corp, is it an LLC? Is that what they can have? Like, you know what I mean? Like what kind of
Yeah.
entity, right?
So we would say, what are your goals, right, from this partnership, and try to understand what their goals are, right? And maybe a partnership isn't necessarily what they need to do, right? I talked to a woman today and we said, you can profit share with someone if it's really that you have an employee that you're trying to get more invested in the business. They don't have to necessarily hold equity, but maybe we do some profit sharing. Maybe there's a title change. If you're bringing on a partner, have you talked about how decisions get made, how problems get resolved when they arise, who can end the relationship if it's not going well? And so we ask a lot of questions around that so that then the documents we put in place give them the flexibility. Oftentimes, things that they don't think about are things like, what if they pass? Like, how does that person's part of the business get valued? Do you want to be in business with that person's partner, like whoever their family member who now owns that part of the business? Or do you want to be able to, get out of a business relationship with someone you never intended to be in a relationship with? And so having those conversations with everybody so that everybody knows what the rules are and how you would transition something, that's how we give, the options and the flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And too, like, because I know a lot of people that are doing this, they are, I'm starting to collaborate. I think there's a lot of talk about collaboration. A lot of people are collaborating with one another and just having those options instead of, I didn't realize you don't have to really have that partnership. You could still have your separate businesses and have some kind of profit sharing plan. And I guess there's just different paperwork that you would want to have in place to protect both parties if something happens to that agreement, like whatever they agreed that they were going to do together. And so I love that.
The other thing with that is that they don't always understand the ramifications like, say you wanted to bring somebody in at 10%. There's a lot of financial ramifications when someone becomes an owner that maybe are not actually that beneficial to the person who's the minority stakeholder. And so educating the minority stakeholder, they might not actually choose to have that type of relationship which is why we explore other options, because you get taxed very differently if you're an LLC that's a single member versus a partnership. And so there might be tax ramifications to that person that they never wanted to take on.
Good to know. I think that's important. That's why I said I wanted to open up this platform because I love the fact that when we got to talk, that you said this is an area that you actually are an expert in. And I love that because I think it's so important that we have not only, the entrepreneurs on here, but I felt like having that support for the entrepreneur was also important too, because we don't know where they go for their support. So I love the fact that you're here because now this allows someone to say, oh, I never thought about it this way. Oh, there's someone that actually does it. Oh, where can I find her? And that's one of the reasons why I opened up this month specifically for women like yourself. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, if there is one area of legal protection that women in the entrepreneurial space, what is it do you think that they typically overlook? Like, what's one thing that they most consistently just in what you've noticed that they overlook? And what do you want them to know about why it matters that they actually pay close attention to that?
Contracts, documenting relationships. I think oftentimes women feel that insisting upon a contract means that you don't trust someone. And really, it means the opposite. It means that you care so much about the relationship and the relationship being successful that you want to put it down in writing so that everybody gets exactly what they wanted out of the relationship. Too often, things are done by a handshake, or it's my best friend, she's going to take care of me. And they never really document who's doing what, how much are they getting paid for it, who owns it, what happens if you're unhappy, right? That kind of stuff. And then that's where it just gets really messy and can wreck relationships and oftentimes cost lots and lots of money. That just having a contract would have just, simplified it, because how you'd handle the problem would already be documented and written out. Or if you needed to go to like small claims, like you already have everything you need to take the next step to resolve it. And just too often I hear women, they're like, I know I should have had one. And I'm like, okay, you don't. So let's try and figure it out. But let's also put something in place so this doesn't happen again in the future. My job isn't to make somebody feel bad, right? And I think oftentimes women worry that they're going to be made to feel bad, but it is what it is, right? Now we just have to solve the situation. And now let's put something in place to protect you going forward. Now that you know.
Yeah, I love that. Well, so I'm not sure how this would work, but say someone's been in partnership for a little while and now they want to put something that maybe they didn't have that type of contract in place. Is it possible still to come in and do a contract that would really still protect both parties? 'Cause I know that they've been in it for a while.
As long as both parties are open to it, it is always possible. You can always retroactively document things and to say you wanted to go back to the beginning. It's very common. I mean, large companies do this too, right? The business wants to work with the vendor right now, but legal takes a month, right? But that contract goes back to the beginning when the relationship started. So yeah, I think it's never too late to try and fix those things and get them documented, particularly in partnerships and things like that, where maybe you didn't fully document all this stuff about what would happen, but if the partners are getting on in age or the partners are thinking about, I might want to retire and step away, have these conversations while you're in a good relationship. They're so much easier to have than when things have started to go south.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for answering that because I wasn't sure like what that would mean. Like, would they be able to do that? When would it start? So I'm glad that you were able to shed some light on that. Now, something I know about you is that you serve on the board of directors for the Girl Scouts of Wisconsin Badgerland Council, and you have been recognized for your commitment to uplifting women through both your professional work and your community involvement. So I want to ask you about leadership from a personal perspective. What does leading with intention actually look like for you in your daily life as CEO, a board member, a mom of four, and a woman who's clearly committed to making a meaningful difference?
Well, I guess I could go a couple of ways with this, but I think it means, is it how I would want to be treated? Right? It means what's fair? Is this how I would want my sister, my mother, my daughter to be treated? Am I emulating the behaviors that are going to make the next generation healthier than my generation, right? We all know we have bad habits and things like that. And so how do I instill in my daughter and her true her co-troop girls, like, how do we give them the tools to be better than us? We've learned so much from my mother's generation to our generation, right? Is how do we just give them the tools to be the strongest, most powerful women they can be and take care of themselves? I think often leading with intention ends up being burned out, right? Because you say yes to everything. And so how do I be selective in saying no so that I'm being true, and in the places I show up, I'm showing up the way I want to?
So important. I think because what we do everything every day, whether we're doing it, like even if we think we're not doing it with intention, there is some intention behind the things that we do. Just sometimes they're just unconsciously being done because it's just something we do every day. But I really feel like that's important, especially because I feel like you are leading in this space of wanting to have a better way for female entrepreneurs to run their businesses, to feel like they're confident in the choices that they make, both legally and well for their lifestyle as well. To like you're a mom, you have four children who are watching you and seeing like, this is what a productive life looks like. This is what it means to actually care about other people. I think that's important. And I think that it's for me about how can we show up and leave a footprint that I always say, like, I always want to leave when people ask me, like, what is your intention for your life? Like the legacy you want to leave behind is really about like making sure that the generation coming up behind me actually has the tools that they need, like whatever it is to get through life, and they feel supported by other women. That's something I would love for at least what I'm doing through bringing women like yourself, bringing women onto this platform and talking about their lives and being able to support and encourage and inspire other women that life can be good. But I also want that to leave the world a better place than when I first came into it. And because I was born, back in the 60s. And so there was a lot of turmoil going on, and there still is today, but it was so much, in the middle of the civil rights movement was going on. And, I come from a background of mixed heritage. Like my mom was white, my dad is black. So I grew up in Canada, mind you, which is a little bit different in the US, but still, it was during those times. And so there was so many things that are different. So I want to leave a footprint that makes this world, like, at least I can leave it better than when I first came in, with better mindset and being able to like say what I've learned and be able to help other younger women coming up behind me to feel like they're supported, and having a community like the podcast to support them through through the lives of the women who come on the show and they share what they do, and being able to, having you as a guest be able to impact the audience by sharing what you do, but also if they want to take it further, all of the links for them to get to you are with your show notes. And that to me is so important. So that was why I asked you the question. I wanted to go ahead.
And I was so there's a Girl Scout saying, and it's that leave a place better than you found it. A Girl Scout always leaves a place better than you found it. And I think, to me, if I can instill that in my children, like, the world is just ultimately going to be, if we all just try to leave everything a little bit better than we found it, there's nothing we can't do, right?
Hmm. I love that. And it's so true. And if we just intentionally think that way, I think that actually will help us, our actions to actually start to mirror that. I did have a quick follow up to the leadership question is, what's something that you've learned about leadership in itself that you wish more women in professional spaces would embrace, or understood it and would embrace more of?
Well, I'll speak to kind of some of, like, when I was in my growing up of my career. I think too often when I was in that stage of my life, it was, I had to struggle to get here, so everybody else should have to struggle because I got to get there. And I think that's really not a healthy way to look at it, right? We should actually, if I had to struggle, I don't want the person behind me to have to struggle as much as I did if I can make it easier for them. And so I think the more we can advocate for women so that the women behind us don't have to go through the same things. Like, I remember pumping and sitting on the floor of a bathroom because there was no places to do that where I worked, right? Which is crazy. Nowadays you wouldn't even think of that, but that's what I had to do back when I had little kids. I think it's just, finding ways to make it a little bit easier for the next generation and encouraging that there isn't only one seat at the table available, that everybody's fighting for the same thing, that there's enough room at the table for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think that is so important to understand that we don't have to. I think a lot of the time, too, what I've noticed is that sometimes we actually are encouraged to, I don't know if it's indirectly or directly, but sometimes we're encouraged to actually feel like we have to compete for the same things. And it's like, no, I mean, if it's meant for us, whoever takes the position or goes after a job and they get the job, that's great. But it doesn't mean that that was the only great job out there. That wasn't the only great opportunity. I think that's what we tend to forget, that there is enough. There's enough for everyone, and that we don't have to like compete with each other, and we can support each other's wins. We can support each other when we're down, but we can also support each other like when we have those great wins. And that's something I think is, for me at least, I started noticing is that women are actually starting to really truly voice that out loud, like how proud they are of people, women, other women that they know, and they're actually shouting them out on social media. And to me, that's huge, because that means that the women, they feel confident enough in their own skin that they don't have to feel like they have to compete with this person. And I think it's important because, like, even I'm sure, because and you're in an industry, there's tons of lawyers, but you're not competing with them. You're doing the best that you can for your own clients, for your business, for the people that work alongside you. It has nothing to do with you competing with another law firm down the street that who knows if they do the same thing as you. It's not about them, and it's not about competition. It's about how do you serve your clients the best that you can. I think that to me is so important. So I really loved talking with you today. What I love is that you have built something incredible. It's rooted in alignment, long-term success with the women that you serve. You want them to feel good about their choices. You want them to feel good about what they do. And for the women listening in today, the entrepreneur who is building something meaningful, but maybe she's been avoiding the legal side of her business because it feels overwhelming. Again, it might feel expensive, or just maybe she doesn't feel it's urgent enough yet. And I'm sure you probably had people say that to you. What do you want that woman to walk away believing about what is possible when she finally allows and gets the right legal foundation in place and it becomes part of her strategy?
She won't believe how much more peace of mind she has, because I think we never really realize how much mental space those worries take up, right? It's similar to, like, they talk about the mental load for women, right? We're always thinking about the laundry and the dishes and the groceries and all the things, but you're doing that in your business too. And if you could take that off, which is probably weighing you more than you realize, because legal, like financials, those are scary things that have big ramifications, you'll have so much more confidence and bandwidth to focus on what you're really good at versus that. I just, it's easier to ask the question, right? Just pick up the phone. If you spent more than 10 minutes Googling something on legal and you still don't know the answer, just call. I mean, for us, it's a $75 to have a half an hour consultation. And you can ask whatever you want. Like, every single question you've ever had, you can say, I looked at AI and it told me this. Is that true? Right? And isn't that $75 that is probably less than what your hourly rate you're charging your clients? So just ask the question, and then you'll know the answer and you can move on and get on to the more important things in your day.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. I will say I've loved talking with you today. Thank you so much for saying yes to being on the show today. I'm so happy that you built Athena Legal Solutions and that you're helping female entrepreneurs really have, finally stop avoiding the conversations that they maybe been afraid to have, and to start building their businesses that not only are just successful, but they're protected, they're sustainable, and they have more freedom because they don't have to feel like they're looking over their shoulders all the time. The idea that legal foundations aren't about restriction, but about freedom stands out for me as something that I'm hoping every woman listening in today hears, and they understand that being, being protected doesn't mean that it's restrictive. And I think that's what people think. It's like being protected means I'm restricted. I can only do X, Y, Z. And yes, to an extent, I'm sure when it comes to business, especially, because there are rules that are set in place, but it doesn't mean that you can't have that quality, not only quality of life outside your business, but quality of life inside your business, quality business. So thanks again for saying yes to the show, for the way that you showed up today and the way you show up to your clients. I love it. I love the fact that young girls are being inspired and encouraged by you, especially like Girl Scouts for me was so fun. I remember just an experience that I won't forget, the bonding and the learning and being, just being led by older women, generation that really felt like I felt like they had my best interest at heart. So it's really evident to me that you are reading your whole self. So thanks again for doing this. Thanks for spending time with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This has been just wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Carolyn directly and learn more about Athena Legal Solutions and how she works with women entrepreneurs, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, the legal side of your business isn't something to fear. It's something to own, because a woman who understands how to protect what she's built doesn't just have a business. She has a legacy. And you have worked too hard, you've dreamed too big, and you've come too far to leave what you're building unprotected. Your business deserves a foundation as extraordinary as the woman building it. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Electric acid.